The file arrived without warning. It was 2:13 a.m. in the dimly lit archives room of the Federal Records Center in Virginia. Rows of gray steel cabinets stretched endlessly under flickering fluorescent lights. Special Agent Daniel Mercer had been cataloging cold cases for nearly 6 hours when the courier dropped a thin brown envelope onto his desk. Stamped across the front in faded red ink were 3 words: FBI Serial Files. Below it, handwritten in black marker, Unusual Patterner. Review. Mercer sighed and rubbed his eyes. Most unusual pattern cases turned out to be coincidences or amateur theories. But something about this envelope felt different. The paper looked old. The edges were worn as if the file had passed through many hands. He opened it slowly. Inside were photographs. Crime scene photographs. A suburban house decorated with American flags. A man lying face down in his driveway. Blood running between red, white, and blue paper streamers. Mercer flipped the photo over. On the back, someone had written, July 4th, 1998, Independence Day. He frowned. Another photo. A snow-covered parking lot. A woman slumped against her car. A small American flag still clutched in her frozen hand. December 25th, 2001, Christmas Day. Mercer felt the first chill crawl down his spine. He turned the page. Another murder. A man found beside a parade route. November 11th, 2003, Veterans Day. Another. A body discovered in a quiet neighborhood during fireworks. January 1st, 2005, New Year's Day. Mercer slowly leaned back in his chair. Every victim had been killed on a federal holiday. He kept turning pages. Memorial Day, Labor Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Thanksgiving. Each murder carefully documented. Each crime scene photographed, each victim unrelated, and each one dead on a day the United States government officially recognized. At the back of the folder was a note, typed, old typewriter font. The paper had yellowed with age. It read, "He only kills when the nation celebrates." Mercer immediately walked down the hallway to the Office of Behavioral Analysis. Agent Claire Donovan was still awake, reviewing case psychology reports. She looked up when Mercer walked in carrying the folder. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Maybe worse," Mercer said, dropping the file on her desk. She opened it and began flipping through the photographs. 10 minutes passed in silence. Then she slowly closed the file. "Jesus, you see it too?" Claire nodded. "Yeah." Mercer leaned forward. "They all happened on federal holidays." Claire tapped the photos, and they span over 15 years. Mercer pulled a sheet from the file. 15 confirmed murders. Claire narrowed her eyes. "Confirmed?" Mercer nodded. "There are 3 more suspected but never proven." Claire leaned back in her chair. "That means this guy waits months between killings, sometimes almost a year." "Which means patience," Claire said quietly. "Planning." Mercer nodded. "And discipline." Claire flipped back to the first crime scene. Independence Day. Suburban neighborhood. Victim, Michael Reeves, age 42. High school teacher, no criminal record, married, 2 children. Cause of death, single stab wound to the heart. No signs of robbery. No forced entry. No fingerprints. Claire flipped to the second victim. Christmas Day. Victim, Laura McAdams. Age 35, nurse, killed in parking lot after midnight mass. Again, 1 precise stab wound. Clean, fast. Mercer pointed to the forensic reports. Same weapon every time. Claire scanned the document. 6-inch blade. No serration. Military-grade steel. She looked up. "This killer is trained." Mercer nodded. "And he chooses holidays." Claire stared at the photos again. Her voice dropped. "This isn't random." Mercer waited. Claire pointed at the dates. "Look closer. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's." She whispered slowly. "He's choosing symbolic days." Mercer frowned. "You mean patriotic?" Claire shook her head. "No, ritualistic." Mercer crossed his arms. "So what's the ritual?" Claire didn't answer immediately. She stared at the victims. Then something clicked. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. What? These aren't just holidays." She spread the photos across the desk. "They're the entire federal calendar." Mercer leaned closer. What do you mean? Claire pointed one by one. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Mercer slowly understood. He's collecting them. Claire nodded. He's completing the calendar. Mercer felt the room grow colder. This guy isn't just killing. He's building something. Claire flipped the last page, and there it was, a hand-drawn calendar. Every federal holiday circled in red ink. Some circles had check marks, some did not. 3 holidays remained blank. Mercer read them aloud. President's Day, Columbus Day, Labor Day. Claire whispered, "He hasn't finished." Mercer checked the date on his phone. It was August 14. Labor Day was 3 weeks away. He looked up slowly. This killer is still active. Claire nodded. And if the pattern is real? Mercer finished the sentence. Someone dies on Labor Day. The investigation reopened immediately. Within hours, the Behavioral Analysis Unit began reconstructing the killer's timeline. 15 murders across 9 different states, always on federal holidays, always between sunset and midnight, always the same weapon, always one precise stab to the heart. No witnesses, no fingerprints, no DNA. But there was one small clue. Every crime scene contained a small object, something strange. At first, investigators thought they were random, but when Claire laid them out side by side, a pattern appeared. Independence Day, a miniature flag pin. Christmas, a small silver bell. Veterans Day, a brass dog tag. Memorial Day, a folded paper poppy. Thanksgiving, a tiny carved turkey figurine. Each object represented the holiday. Mercer stared at them. He's leaving signatures. Claire shook her head. No. What then? Markers. For what? Claire looked at the calendar again. For completion. Mercer frowned. You think he's counting? Claire nodded slowly. This killer isn't acting out of rage. He's following a system. Mercer leaned back. A ritual calendar. Claire whispered, and rituals usually have a purpose. Mercer stood up. So what's the purpose? Claire closed the folder. That's what we need to figure out before Labor Day. 3 days later, the FBI discovered something even stranger. The first murder. Independence Day, 1998. Michael Reeves. Mercer visited the old crime scene in Maryland. The house was still there. Same white porch. Same driveway. Same quiet neighborhood. But something about the case file bothered him. Reeves had been a teacher. But Mercer dug deeper. Reeves had served in the Army before teaching, military intelligence. Mercer felt a cold realization forming. He called Claire, run background checks on every victim. Already did. And? Claire's voice was tense. You're not going to like this. Tell me. All 15 victims worked for the federal government at some point. Mercer froze. What? Military, intelligence, federal contractors. Even the nurse from the Christmas case worked in a veterans hospital. Mercer's pulse quickened. This isn't random. Claire said quietly. No. It's revenge. Mercer asked a question neither one had answered. Against what? Claire's reply was chilling. Against the government. Back at headquarters, they spread the files across the conference table. 15 victims, all connected to federal service, killed only on federal holidays. Claire circled a note in the margin of the file. Written years earlier by a retired profiler, the note said, "The killer sees the holidays as symbols of the system he hates." Mercer stared at the words. So every holiday, Claire finished the thought, is a reminder. Mercer nodded slowly. And every murder is punishment. Claire looked at the unfinished calendar. 3 holidays left. President's Day, Columbus Day, Labor Day. Mercer checked the date again. Labor Day was coming, and somewhere out there, a killer was preparing, because for nearly 20 years he had followed the same rule. He only killed on federal holidays, and Labor Day was next. But the most terrifying discovery came later that night. Claire found it buried in the evidence logs. One of the victims. The 2007 Memorial Day case. A retired Air Force colonel. Inside his pocket, investigators had discovered a small folded note. They had dismissed it as random trash. But Claire unfolded the scanned image. 3 words were written in neat handwriting, "See you again." Underneath it was a date, Labor Day. The note had been written 12 years before the holiday even happened. Claire stared at the screen, then slowly called Mercer. Her voice shook. "This killer." Mercer waited. "He's been planning the entire calendar for decades, and somewhere in America, the man who killed only on federal holidays was getting ready for his next date, Labor Day. And the FBI had less than 3 weeks to stop him. But they still didn't know his name, they didn't know his face, and they didn't yet understand the most terrifying truth hidden inside the file. Because the killer wasn't just following the calendar, he was finishing it, and when the last holiday was complete, something far worse was supposed to happen. The room inside FBI headquarters was silent except for the low hum of fluorescent lights. Agent Daniel Mercer stood beside the evidence board, staring at the calendar that had begun haunting every investigator in the building. Every federal holiday had a red circle around it. Most of them had a black check mark, which meant someone had died. Only 2 circles remained empty: Labor Day, Columbus Day. Claire Donovan walked into the room carrying a stack of fresh reports. Her face looked different, tense. Mercer noticed immediately. "You found something." Claire placed the files on the table. "Yeah." Mercer waited. Claire pointed at the victims' profiles spread across the board. "Every victim worked for the federal government." Mercer nodded. "We already know that." Claire shook her head. "No, not just work for them." She flipped open a document. Every victim was connected to one specific operation. Mercer leaned forward. "What operation?" Claire turned the report around. At the top of the page was a classified heading: Operation Silent. Judgment 1993. Mercer frowned. "What the hell is that?" Claire exhaled slowly. "An internal investigation." "Into what?" "Military intelligence corruption." Mercer felt the first crack in the mystery. Who were they investigating? Claire looked at the board again. These people. Mercer's eyes moved across the victims' faces. Teachers, nurses, retired officers, government contractors. What did they do? Claire answered quietly. They were witnesses. Mercer froze. Witnesses to what? Claire hesitated. Then said the words that changed everything. A cover-up. She pulled out a sealed file. 23 years ago, a military intelligence task force exposed a covert funding program inside the government. Mercer frowned. Illegal funding? Claire nodded. Money diverted into black operations that were never authorized by Congress. Mercer crossed his arms. So they testified. Claire nodded again. Some testified, some investigated, some helped prosecute. Mercer slowly understood, and someone blamed them. Claire looked back at the calendar. Someone decided they ruined his life. Mercer's mind began racing. If the killer is connected to that investigation, Claire finished the thought, then we should find his name inside these records. They began searching, the room filled with files, personnel records, military reports, court transcripts. And finally, they found him, one name highlighted in red. Captain Aaron Whitlock Mercer read the summary aloud. Military intelligence officer. Discharged 1994. Court-martialed for unauthorized financial operations. Claire added the final line. Sentence, 20 years in federal prison. Mercer looked up. When was he released? Claire checked the record. 2014. Mercer frowned. But the murders started in 1998. Claire nodded slowly, which means Mercer finished the sentence. He didn't start killing after prison. He started killing before he was caught. The realization sent chills through the room. Whitlock had begun his revenge the moment the investigation started, and he never stopped. Claire pulled up Whitlock's photograph. The screen showed a clean-cut man with sharp eyes and a calm expression. He looked ordinary. Too ordinary. Mercer stared at the image. This guy waited months between murders, sometimes a year. Claire nodded. That level of patience usually means military training. Mercer tapped the screen. He was military, Claire whispered, and he's been planning this for over 20 years. Mercer looked back at the calendar. 2 holidays left, Labor Day, Columbus Day. If the pattern continues, Mercer said, the next kill happens in 2 weeks. Claire nodded. Labor Day. Mercer grabbed his jacket. Then we find Whitlock before that. But the investigation hit a wall. Whitlock had vanished after his prison release. No job records, no address, no bank activity. It was as if he had disappeared completely. Until Claire noticed something strange. She was reviewing old evidence from the 2007 Memorial Day murder when a detail caught her attention: the brass dog tag the killer left behind. She zoomed into the engraving. Most investigators assumed it was random, but Claire enhanced the image. The engraving wasn't random, it was a serial number, military. She ran it through the database. The result appeared seconds later. Her heart skipped. The dog tag belonged to a soldier who had died in Afghanistan in 2006. Mercer rushed over. "What is it?" Claire pointed at the screen. "The killer didn't leave random objects." Mercer frowned. "They all represent holidays." Claire nodded. "Yes, but they also belong to real people." Mercer's eyes widened. "You mean stolen?" Claire whispered. "No." She pulled up the soldier's service file. "He commanded the unit." Mercer felt the final piece sliding into place. Whitlock had served with many of the people connected to the investigation. Soldiers, officers, agents. Each holiday token belonged to someone from his past. Mercer stared at the calendar again. "Then the last two holidays," Claire said quietly, "are for the last two names." Mercer asked the question neither of them wanted answered. "Who are they?" Claire searched the old Operation Silent Judgment witness list. 37 names appeared. Mercer began crossing them out. One by one. Most were already dead. 15 murdered. Several died naturally. A few were missing. Finally, 2 names remained. Mercer read them aloud. Judge Harold Bennett and... He paused. Claire's eyes widened. And FBI Special Agent Richard Hale. Mercer turned slowly. "Richard Hale?" Claire whispered. "He's still alive." Mercer grabbed his phone. "And he's speaking at the Labor Day federal ceremony in Washington." The room went silent. Thousands of people would attend. Parades, fireworks, crowds everywhere. The perfect place for Whitlock to strike. The FBI mobilized instantly. Labor Day morning, Washington, D.C. was flooded with agents. Snipers on rooftops, undercover officers in crowds, metal detectors at every entrance. Judge Bennett had already been placed in protective custody, which meant Whitlock's only remaining target today was Agent Richard Hale. Mercer stood beside the stage, scanning the massive crowd. Thousands of flags waving, children laughing, music playing. The celebration looked peaceful, but Mercer knew somewhere inside that crowd, a man had waited 20 years for this moment. Claire spoke quietly through the radio. "Any sign of him?" "Nothing yet." Hale stepped onto the stage. Applause erupted. Mercer scanned every face. Nothing. Then something strange happened. Claire's voice returned. "Mercer, I found something." "What?" "I checked Whitlock's prison records again. And he had a visitor." Mercer frowned. "When?" "Every year." Mercer's stomach tightened. "Who?" Claire answered. "Agent Richard Hale." Mercer's blood ran cold. "What?" "Hale visited Whitlock in prison every year for 20 years. Mercer looked up at the stage. Hale was speaking into the microphone, smiling, calm. Claire whispered through the radio, "Mercer, I think we've been hunting the wrong man." The realization exploded in Mercer's mind. Whitlock wasn't finishing the calendar. He was helping someone else finish it. Someone inside the system. Someone who knew the investigation. Someone who knew every witness. Mercer's eyes locked on Hale. Then he saw it. Hale's hand slipped inside his coat. Mercer shouted, "Hale!" The crowd gasped. Hale pulled out a small blade, the exact type used in every murder. Claire screamed through the radio, "He's the killer!" Mercer rushed forward, but Hale smiled, a calm, satisfied smile. "I told Whitlock I'd finish the calendar." Mercer tackled him before the blade could reach its target. The crowd erupted in chaos. Agents swarmed the stage. Hale was arrested seconds later. But the truth that followed was even darker. Hale had been the architect of Operation Silent Judgment. He feared the witnesses would expose deeper secrets inside the government. So he eliminated them, one by one, using holidays as the perfect cover. Whitlock had only been the first scapegoat, the man Hale framed, the man Hale manipulated, and the man Hale eventually convinced to help continue the killings. The calendar had never been about revenge. It was about silence. Every holiday murder erased another witness, and when the final name disappeared, the truth would vanish forever. But Mercer stopped it. One holiday early, Labor Day ended with an arrest. And the final circle on the calendar remained empty. Columbus Day. The day that never came. The day the killer never completed. Inside the FBI archives today, the calendar still sits inside a locked evidence box. Red circles, black check marks, and one empty date. A reminder of the killer who murdered on federal holidays and the agent who almost finished the calendar.